My name is Dr. Abdullah Ali, but you can call me Ax. My pronouns are he, him. I describe myself as a creative scientist because I started my career as a researcher when I was getting my PhD in human-computer interaction. I wrote code, I designed systems, I did UX research, and then I moved on to work as a designer, a product manager, and a founder of my own company. And I worked at big companies like Amazon and Apple. And also I worked at very fast-moving startups like Built for Words. I like to say that I've been in a serious relationship with AI since the mid-2010s. I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of the earlier work that I've done, but then I'm going to dive deeper on demo about the work that I've done more recently. All right, so here are 3 examples of work I've done building experiences powered by machine learning or artificial intelligence. And the first one of them is my work on dyslexia. The problem is that 10% of the entire population has dyslexia. However, testing for dyslexia is super expensive. It can cost upwards of $1,000 and requires a special medical professional, which leads to a lot of kids going undiagnosed and end up failing out of school to no fault of their own. I got the chance to work with 3 other brilliant scientists at the Carnegie Mellon University, where we invented a game that uses AI to detect dyslexia. The game is called Detective with a Y. I came up with that name, really proud of it. But I did other things as well. So I actually built the gameplay and the entire front end of the game. We used about a dozen different performance parameters to classify how the player is doing and that to the performance of somebody with dyslexia. And we can tell with over 92% accuracy whether this player has or doesn't have the risk of having dyslexia. The game still lives on, actually. To this day, it is part of the Change Dyslexia nonprofit organization and has helped over 500,000 kids get their diagnosis for free. Me and the team ended up writing about 4 different peer-reviewed academic papers in the top-tier scientific journals, and it's one of my really proudest projects, and that's why I wanted to start with it. Next up, I want to tell you about some work I did with older adults and Parkinson's patients who have tremors in their hands, which makes it really hard for them to control a mouse and click on small targets on a computer screen. So what we did is we used a machine learning algorithm trained on the patterns of mouse movements of somebody who is having tremors. So when the user who's using our system starts experiencing some tremors, the system recognizes that behavior, and then it would adapt itself in a way that it would either slow down the cursor speed, make the targets bigger so the user can easily click on things and go about completing their task. Again, this was some deeply academic work where me and the team ended up publishing about another 4 peer-reviewed articles. Then the big one, which was my work in my PhD dissertation, which I did at the University of Washington, which has one of the top 3 HDI programs in the world. What I wanted to do is I wanted to help make designing technologies as accessible and representative of people's abilities, values, and preferences. So I built a platform to co-design studies online. So say if you're a designer or a researcher working on a new device like a VR headset, you can get input from hundreds or even thousands of people all over the world that will inform you how to design interactions that makes it easy and more inclusive to use your device. But here's the problem. The more people give you their opinions on how you should design your product, the harder it gets to sort through all that qualitative data. So once again, I built a system that uses a human-in-the-loop approach and a unsupervised machine learning clustering algorithms to analyze these huge qualitative data sets. And actually, the system that we made ended up outperforming lab studies in their qualities. It was half as expensive and 400 times faster. I published about 6 peer-reviewed papers, an article in Interaction magazine, and the dissertation book that got me those 3 little letters after my name. Enough of scientific talk. Let me dive into something a little bit more fun. This is Bo and Third Brain. Bo the brain, as you can see, just said hi to you and waved to you. And we made Bo and put all kinds of love into it. And it started a couple of years ago when my wife and I were getting married and we were moving across the country. We moved from Seattle to New York, and we were also starting new jobs. We had to-do lists, sticky notes all over the place, and we just wanted something to help us just manage all this thing. And that's when Third Brain was born. We wanted to have a medium between us that was smart enough to understand us both and help us organize this thing. Because it turns out that wasn't just an us problem or our friends problem. It was a global problem. It was one of the United Nations 17 sustainability goal, and it had a name. It's called the mental load or invisible work, which sadly women tend to do 3 times as much as men in modern relationships. So what did we do? In late 2023, when OpenAI made their APIs available and easy to use, we thought, how might we use Gen AI to solve this problem? So we built a couple organizer to help people in relationships be on the same page when it comes to getting their life organized. And let me demo the first feature we worked on, which we called brain dump. Brain dump is where the user can just type or speak whatever is on their mind, and the AI would go through and categorizes it into, oh, this is a task, this is a note, this is an event, who should be completing this task, when should it be done, and what category does it belong into. Another thing that we used AI for was those pesky little overdue tasks that actually, when you have so many of them, you end up just abandoning your to-do app. I've done that so many times. So what we did is whenever you have a bunch of these overdue tasks is you just hit the bow magic button, and the AI actually goes through your schedule and looks about for the next 10 days to see any gaps in your schedule that it can slot in those overdue things. So taking into account if something is a recurring task, say, if you take the trash every Tuesday, it will schedule it for your next Tuesday. And finally, we also added a co-pilot in the notes feature of the application. So if it's the end of the night and you're putting the kids to bed and you just cannot come up with a bedtime story, you can simply ask Bo to create one for you. Or say if you have a list of classical movies that you and your partner are working your way through it, instead of spending hours scrolling through Netflix only to fall asleep and not watching something, you can just simply ask the AI, what should we watch from this list that doesn't have a tick mark next to it? And Bo would simply give you this answer. Despite ThirdBrain not being a huge commercial success that it can sustain itself as its own company, the app is still available. I still work on it from time to time. Other Gen AI tools, I use AI pretty much every single day. I'm always talking to my custom GPT to help me refine my writing in my own tone of voice, come up with ideas. I use Perplexity a lot when I'm doing research and I want credible resources with as little hallucination as possible. I've been using Claude and Cursor a lot to make prototypes and experiment with some agentic workflows. In my free time, I also work with Adobe as one of their certified Adobe experts, where they send me into companies to teach them how to use the Adobe Creative Cloud AI features like Firefly or the AI features in Illustrator and Photoshop. I'm also a visiting researcher at NYU's Abilities Project, where I help advise PhD students on their work in accessibility and AI.